Hey everybody, it's Ripley back again. Welcome back. Um, I'm going to do just a real brief tutorial on how to use callouts. Not just to use callouts as kind of a fun little graphical tool, but as an editing tool in particular. The most important thing I think that we have to realize is that we're human and we're going to make mistakes, and you have to be prepared to sort of deal with those mistakes. You could literally spend hours and hours re-going over your material to try and find any mistakes that you made. So as a solution to that, I employ my kids. If my kids find errors in my presentations, I give them extra credit, very much like I used to do so when I was doing didactic lectures in class. If you don't, if you get hung up on making errors, and you're going to have to let that go because you're going to make errors, the process can become prohibitive. It can get really overwhelming because just the editing of and re-editing of videos it's hard enough as it is. It takes enough time as it is that you don't want to make it worse on yourself. So I want to show you something real quick. When I did Calculus Chapter 5.5, which was integration by substitution, I ended up with a comment. So I like to kind of troll through my video manager. Troll is the wrong word. How about scroll through my video manager and just look for comments? Again, since I have kids that aren't taking classes from me that are using my videos, every now and then a comment will pop up from somebody and they're like, oh, you made an error, or did you mean to say, or what's wrong with you, man? There's something seriously wrong with you, which is true. But yeah, I'll see it here in my uploads, or if I go to my Gmail, remember my Gmail is linked to my YouTube. So it'll pop up in my inbox. It'll say such and such made a comment, and then I know that if they tell me there's an error, then I know to go to that specific video. So let me show you what this comment was. I got to go back to my video manager. Let's see, where was that thing? I think it was over here. Sorry about this, you guys. And cruise down, yeah, there it was. So I go to the specific comment, 5.1, let's see what they said. By the way, in the last problem you did it wrong. You forgot to, so I made an error. So what I do is, instead of going back and re-recording, if I can help it, sometimes you just have to, if you really screw up, and I've done that once or twice myself, what I did is I went back in, so I'm going to open a project, and I am in 5.5. Let's see, we'll open this guy up. And here's 5.5, and this is integration by substitution. Wait, I don't want this one. I just want the part 1, don't I? Let's go open a project. This is 5.5, part 1. Sorry about that. Notice, this is actually kind of a teachable moment. This is my 5.5. This is the entire project that I created for 5.5. It was 36 minutes long, so I had to cut it up into 3 separate videos. So 5.5 part 1, part 2, part 3. Again, and we've already gone over how to do that, so I just wanted to sort of reinforce that. So let's open this guy, and let me show you what I have over here. What I have is, I have a call out. So right where I made that error, and if you can tell, watch. So I got 1/5 u to the 10th, or excuse me, 1/5 the integral of u to the 10th du, and I forgot to divide by 11, so I left the call out. And look at what it says. It says, oops, it's supposed to be 1/55 u to the 11 plus c, too much caffeine. Now, I'm going to show you how to make that call out right now, okay? And it's kind of fun. It's actually really cool and creative way that you can put stuff into your videos, but again, I just predominantly use it as an editing tool. I'm of the opinion that if I put too much flash in there, I don't want my kids to be distracted. I want them to be able to appreciate the content rather than the form, as it were, the function rather than the form. So let me show you how to do this real quick. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this guy. So here it sits. I'm going to cut it out. Get rid of it. So the way that you do this is you figure out where you made your error. And I like to use these magnifying glasses because that gets me tighter to the editing bar. You know what I mean by tighter? It's particularly audio. If I'm making cuts, it's really useful because I can make the cuts at pauses in my speech. So it appears that right here, let's listen real quick. So there's my error.
Let's see, look at how much easier that was.
Okay, stop. Now that seems to be a pretty good spot to stick a call out in there. Again, another thing is, watch as I'm editing, see that one click and all of a sudden I'm over here into my talking, and I don't want to make breaks there, particularly if I'm putting splices. So I can zoom in and then I have a little more room. See how that's kind of cool, huh? All right, so I'm going to back out here so I don't get too crazy. I'm going to stick out a call out in, and I like this crazy little arrow right here. All right, and do I want that one or do I want this one? Let's put this guy here. Notice that the font, the default font is 18. Now, I'll show you what can happen with these fonts. That you can, just like any other, if you're using text, if you're inserting text into Word documents, things like that, we've all run into the problem of this. So, oops, it was supposed to be, what was it? 155th. 155th u to the 11th plus c. Too much caffeine. All right. Now notice, because the font is so large, it doesn't all fit in the arrow. So what I do is I'm going to crank up here, just like with any other little text box, turn it into a 10 point. 10 point seems to work pretty well. Let's see, and then check this out. I don't know, I like to get a little bit artsy-fartsy with these things, so I'm going to twist it in here, drop this in right there, and there it sits. If I want to shrink up the box a little bit, see there, makes it kind of a little more svelte, which is kind of nice. And there we go. I'm all set. I click away from it to see how it's going to look. And I want you to notice something here. You always want to double check your work when you're doing editing like this, because weird things can happen. It's technology, so all hell can break loose from time to time. Watch this. Let's see how this thing comes in and goes away. So here's me making an error.
Plus C. Look at how much easier that was.
Fades in.
Right? Could you imagine? Think about this. What if I told you you had to multiply this thing
and
out
then fade it out, which is cool. Now, I'm going to pause. I'm going to back out. I'm going to float my, watch this, if I float it over, the default length on these videos, or on these callouts, excuse me, is 7 seconds long. All right, but we can tweak that if we need to. So if I zoom back a little bit, let's say that I want it to be a little bit longer, or I'm like, oh, I put it in the wrong spot, and I want to move it around just a little bit. Well, again, with your magnifying glasses, you can get as technical or as precise as you want to, but I want to show you a couple tricks. Notice when I float on it, it just sort of gives me the diagnostics on it, but when I move around, notice how it goes from green to red. Well, notice that green and that red correspond to the same green and red as we have on our scrubber. So if I go to the left-hand side and I want to make it longer, I can drag it this way. Now, if I'm on the red part, watch, if I go to the red part and I click, it's not going to let me go left, because the left side, or excuse me, the red side, it will only allow me to stretch right. So it works very much like the scrubber does. Okay? Hopefully that was pretty helpful. Let me show you another. Oh, by the way, I wanted to show you one more thing before I zoom in that. Watch. If I want, and this becomes a pretty helpful tool, I should probably zoom in a little bit so it's a little more precise. If I want, I can make the thing as long as I want. I can make it go for the entire length of the video if I want. And I actually use that. I don't use it for the whole length of the video, but I use it in other videos to mask, like when I'll actually do a little video on that, but I'll use it to mask, instead of 5.5 integration by substitution, if I'm using a different text, I'll say 3.2 integration by substitution, and I'll throw a call out over the top of that thing for the entirety of that page being seen by the students. All right, so let's go back to here, and then there's one other thing I want to show you. If you want, notice I can tweak this fade in, fade out. The defaults are at 1 second a piece. If I want no fade in, if I want it to just flash, now watch what happens. You got to be careful. You might give your kids a seizure if it flashes too much or too fast.
This is equal to 1/5 u to the 11th.
Bam, there it is.
Look at how much
and then on the back side,
right?
it
Could
will,
you imagine? Think about
it'll
this.
fade out.
What if I told you you had to multiply this thing out?
I usually just use the defaults. I don't use the default lengths necessarily, but I use the default settings. So I'm going to fade in and put it in a second. Whoops. Now again, TechSmith has a great tutorial for you if you want to use this guy for for being creative, but I use it as an editing function. So hopefully this was helpful. Let's see if I got this thing back to 7 seconds. Oh, that's a little too long, so I'll shrink it up a little bit. There we go. And well, 721, that's close enough. And it really is a really useful tool for minimizing the amount of work that you have to do if you make errors, which you will make errors. You're going to be a little uncomfortable with those in the beginning, but you learn all sorts of workarounds for it. All right? Well, thanks for your time and attention. We'll see you in the next module.